Hello, my name is Justin Ray Sampson, and I'm part of Neon Knight Studio. And our game is called Yokai, and this is my individual walkthrough for the game and what to showcase what I've done for the game for the last 9 months. Just to start, I done character concept artist, or I was a character concept artist for the game, and then I moved on to 3D model the characters, and then after that, I did the rigging and animating of the characters. The main ones I focused on were the player, the first boss, Tengu, the second boss, and the Yuki Onna, the third boss, the final boss. And then here are some of our main inspirations for the game. Mainly Cyberpunk 2077, and there's also the Kamigawa set from MTG. And then the second main inspiration is the Japanese folklore and myths. And I think thirdly is the weaponry, of the Japanese weaponry. We mostly focus on the more non-focus, non-main weapons. So like Naginata, the Tetsubo, I think the bow. And then moving on to the concept art, we had some iterations from the initial design to simplifying it a little bit more, just because of the way the game looks. Since we are using a pixel art, we had to make sure like some of the character design are like simple. They're not overly complicated. There's not much detailed, because when you apply pixel filter, it'll mess with like some of the coloring, which is like does the flickering sometimes. So we try to keep that in mind when we're designing the characters. Since the at the start of the development, we 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 wanted to do a pixel art 3D game. This here is the three basic enemies that we have. The first one is the Maiden. The Maiden has range attacks. Is a mid-range character. The second one is the drone. The drone is a close core combat character unit. And the next one is the Oni drone, which is a range character, which shoots out energy ball towards the player. Then here are some of the designs for the boss. You already know the Oni, and here's the original design for the Tengu, but I'll show you the redesign later. And then the Yuki Onna. It At the start of the development, we initially had a dual boss plan for the third boss, but unfortunately, due to time constraint, we had to scrap the idea. This saved time and resources to so that we can just animate one character rather than animate two characters, as well as programming two characters at the same time, synchronizing attacks. Next is the character sheets. The character sheets helps me a lot when 3D modeling. Some of these are recaps from the last video. I will do a walkthrough what I've done for the game and what they look like. And I also designed the characters, but some of the characters that were in the game were modeled by other teammates, such as the basic enemies were modeled by um, Eric Azeb and Dara Lynch. Next up is the softwares we use. So for me specifically, I use ZBrush for shaping the model, and then I moved on to 3ds Max for retopology. And then after that, I moved on to Blender for rigging and animation. And then lastly, and then importing and implementation. And then after implementation, I passed it on to programmer and VFX artist. And here are some of the models, and here is the Tengu. Here's the initial, here's the redesign for the Tengu. We went more of a robotic design rather than a humanoid design because we felt like it fits more of the environment itself. And then here's the Yukiona, and here's some of the rigging for the characters. You can see that each character has their own unique bones for the skirts. Tengu has the wings for it. And then here are some of the total animations that we have for the characters, excluding the ones I didn't do, such as the maiden, the drone, and the spider only. And then here are some of the dialogue icons that I did for the game that were used for when the player interacts with other characters. And then non-game assets I did some cover art for the game. Um, I mainly used the Tales series as my main inspirations. Tale of Arise and Tales of Zestria were my main inspirations for the game. So updates for the game. So for the Tengu, we have a phase two now. We implemented our phase two for the Tengu. So what the phase two does is that the initial Tengu, which you fight on the ground, flies up, returns returns to the scene as the big version of himself, which surrounds the entirety of the arena. So the fight switches from fighting the body itself to fighting just the hands. Each hand has a unique motion. I would say motion. So one is the range attack, one is the melee attack, and then they will both have a synchronized attack for majority of the when they're both alive. So if you destroy one hand, it will trigger the variant attacks that they have. So for example, if you destroy the melee hand, range hand will activate uh, its variant attacks, and that will mainly be the attacks you will be facing against for the rest of the fight. The same goes for the left hand, your melee hand. So if your melee hand is left active, it'll do the melee attacks. So it'll do multiple like different attacks, such as constant slamming, a laser to the ground, which beams outwards. And then other thing is that I polished mostly the animations. I mostly used uh, I changed most of the animations to just play in twos. So by playing in twos, it has more impact. So because it's cutting to a certain point of the swings feels more fast and rather than having it play throughout and more slow that way than what we have now, which is much more faster. So like we polished Tengu, Tengu phase one, Yukiona phase one, all of the Oni attacks and mainly the player. And lastly the cover art. This is what we'll be using for the rest of the game. For the rest of the as our main page and our main menu without the logo. Alright, that's it for the presentation, but I'll show you some gameplay aspects. So, this is pretty much changed from the last time we saw it. This time we have the companion. UIs have been updated by our UI artists. We can see the combat is much more fluid. Uh, running everything was updated, including the running, just to feel more smoother. Some of it is was slightly tweaked, so it doesn't look like it's when it's running, its legs were like way apart, way apart. I also messed with the some of the exit times for the swings, so that when they swing, they can straight go to the next one and then the next one. And it also gives the time for when they cancel an animation. Skipping ahead, just to the boss fights. You can see some of the boss fights is like it's much more. We can see here the swings are more faster, so they're like more impact. So the swing goes this. Some of it were left alone because we felt like it didn't need much changing. The jumps were faster now. When the only jumps backwards, or yeah, when they jump backwards, they're a bit slow. This gives like a little bit of windows for the player to attack. But this time we made it a little bit faster. And then the next thing is that we made the slashes uh, more visible when they slash. They have more swing to it. They have more motion. I think overall, I think that was the key thing that I was trying to do is it has more impact and then more expression when they do the motion itself. And then there's the Tengu. This is the first phase. Not much has changed for the first phase. Pretty much the same. For animation wise, they're pretty much the same. It's not until we get to the second part of the phase, which will go from his small version, and he'll fly off as his exit, and then comes back as the big bad giant. And this is what I was talking about when once he enters his phase 2, you'll be fighting the one as one entity, but you're fighting against like you can choose which one you want to fight. You can choose whether you want to fight the left hand or the right hand. Um, if you want to fight the range hand, um, you'll have to dodge a lot of the laser attacks. If you want to dodge the melee, you have to dodge like all the spams. It will be coming your way as well as lasers. I think during development, or well, in the middle of development or beta, we got feedbacks from multiple people. Uh, we tried to implement it as much as possible, but there's some stuff like, such as it's too fast, it's too slow. Like how do we please everyone? But at the end of the day, you can't really please anyone. So we try to go for what it's best for the character or like for the game itself. And this is when you finish the Tengu, it'll return back to the arena. I think also just to note um, during development I also help with designing some of the movesets or I give suggestions to our main lead Eric and he takes that into consideration as I'm also the one animating the characters. So I also have input on the choices. Um, we also try to keep in mind like our programmer. Depending on how it's gonna be programmed, we try to keep that in mind. So like, for example, is this possible? Or if we have a grand scale attack, as the first thing we think is like, do we have enough time for our programmer to do this? If it's not, we scrap it or we backlog it. And if we do, we put it in the game, and it's the same process over and over. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it for what I've done for the game. I think I'm not sure if there's anything else, but it's mostly for the remainder of the week I did just polishing animations, um, and doing cover art.